me 60 the way I got 4 dicks. Yo, hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Games Kids. Today, and only today, we are here, that's right, to talk about the future of 3D Mario. Now, I figured I wanted to do this video because, look, a lot of you know me and know my channel. You know, I've been championing the idea that I want 3D Mario really badly. You know, I'm getting hungry, and it's become to the point where Mario 3D games have become sort of an event when they come out. You know, I remember back in the day when Odyssey was coming out, it felt like all eyes were on it, you know, from Jump Up Superstar to the ads where they were live action Mario's dancing in the streets to like having pop-ups and stores. It just felt like everything was around that release, and when it came out, it was magic, you know, and we had that recently with Tears of the Kingdom. That game was announced for a long time, had its big moments, you know, and it finally came out. And I feel like with 3D Mario, we're definitely reaching that point, especially like Odyssey was such a special game. I really cannot, like, you know, I can't begin to mention how much I adore Mario Odyssey, from its like animations to obviously the capping mechanic being such a clever, well executed idea. It's almost a way to, you know, have power-ups or that it being limited to, you know, here's a costume for Mario, but like, hey, the world is your power-up in a lot of ways. But I always just felt like the same way Galaxy 1 existed and it was incredible, and then I saw, my eyes are open with Galaxy 2. I'm like, oh my god, there's so much you can do here and expand on. This is how I feel about Super Mario Odyssey 2, you know, with a sequel to that. And obviously, I want to talk about not just Odyssey 2, but what I could see just the future of 3D Mario being. It's very rare an idea in a main Mario game is revisited, right? You mean you go back all the way to the past, right? Mario 64, right? We have this idea of open hub area, and you know, you go into missions and the different stars, and they have their different attributes, right? And the main area doesn't really change, but then you get a game like Sunshine where it iterates on the idea of Mario 64, right? You have the levels you go to, they each have their missions, and depending on what mission you're doing, the level changes a little bit. And I always love that. I love the idea of sort of revisiting a level and it's evolving over time. It's almost like kind of what Tears of the Kingdom does with Breath of the Wild, where like it takes the base world you have, and then now that it's in a new sequel, more happens to it. But they were doing that within the same game with Mario, which I really always loved. It always made you feel like, oh shit, I can't wait to go back in the level and see what's different, especially in Sunshine. I mean, Sunshine, like, the levels are wildly different, you know, there's a lot of variety within the levels, and I always loved that about 3D Mario. And I feel like with every 3D Mario, there's always something different I feel like we can re-explore. Like, if we go back to 64, like I said, I would love a sequel to 64, like a direct sequel to 64. And when I say that, I would love if it really was like, hey, you're going back to, hey, Mushroom Kingdom, it's expanded now. You know, obviously we got a Mushroom Kingdom in Odyssey, but I'd love something even bigger, you know, where like maybe it is like the Mario movie where there's a whole town of toads, you know, walking around, that you can platform all around that area. That would be an incredible way to flesh out the idea of the Mushroom Kingdom, and that would be so cool to sort of revisit Mario 64's world and style in a bigger capacity. What if, you know, you walked around the streets of the Mushroom Kingdom and found a painting to go into, you know, and that painting had levels? I would love something like that. And they work like kingdoms. You don't have to go into different missions. Instead, you know, you could go into the painting and it's a level where you can get all those collectibles in one go or leave. It would sort of be like an evolution of 64 while staying in that style, you know, and I feel like that'd be really cool if there were like buttons you could activate that activate different things for you to get a star or a power up or something. You know, I would love something like that if they revisited sort of Super Mario 64 as like a sequel. And I know what you're thinking, maybe Odyssey is kind of like that, but I don't think it's the same thing, because with Odyssey, you are getting like a shit ton of moons, right? There's like 50 plus per world or something. Whereas like in 64, it's like, hey, here are the 8 for this level, you know, and I would love if we went back to that idea of like, hey, maybe there's 5 to 8 missions, but they're like wildly different, you know, and I would love to see what kind of variety and different things that area does. That'd be awesome. Now, Mario Sunshine, right? We all love and hate Mario Sunshine, depending on who you ask, right? I love Mario Sunshine. I think it's a very cozy game. You know, it's a game that has just a lot of color. It's got a lot of life to it, but I know it has a lot of jank. But I will say the controls and movement in Sunshine are some of my favorites in the series. You know, I love Flood. I love the idea of, you know, being able to do a spin jump into a float, or even, you know, a back jump, or even the crazy splash. Like, I feel like there was a lot to do with Flood. It almost felt like an action game within Mario, and I would love to see Flood re-explored. I mean, like, dude, A Sunshine today would be phenomenal, bro. Dude, I would kill for another Mario game that was set as like a whole tropical idea of Sunshine. Could you imagine going back to Delfino Plaza and it literally is Mario revisiting it like 10, 20 years later? That's why it was so exciting when there were quote unquote leaks of Sunshine DLC being in Mario Odyssey, because the idea of revisiting Isle Delfino and it's evolved over time and maybe, you know, Flood gets a bunch of new mechanics and stuff would be incredible. And having that world be polished, obviously in a modern day, would be phenomenal. I would love to re-explore Sunshine and Flood as a concept. I love the idea of the refilled water, the rocket nozzle, you know, the Yoshis, you know, that make platforms. Like, there is so much I still feel like they can do with Sunshine, which is why it's really unfortunate they never revisited it. We then went on to Mario Galaxy, which changed everything. You know, it sort of went back to, in a weird way, it went back to the 64 style where, you know, you enter a level and that level has a few missions, but obviously you got way more levels, but those levels obviously, you know, only had a few stars in them. But I mean, Galaxy and Galaxy 2 are the gifts from heaven. You know, it felt like because they were shorter levels, it just felt like there were so many weird, quirky ideas being thrown at you left and right. It felt like everything you did in Galaxy 2 was like constant creativity left and right, left and right. And I love that about those games. And honestly, if they made a Galaxy 3, I would be all for it, because the anti-gravity sort of movement of Mario is really good, albeit a little limiting. You know, it does feel like there's not many movement options for Mario. I still felt like, you know, the regression of movement was still okay because of the creativity on display. I mean, especially Yoshi in Galaxy 2 is so fun. There were so many things about Galaxy that I would love to re-explore. In fact, Nintendo has talked about it. I think Miyamoto has definitely said that he'd love to revisit Galaxy, but he needs, you know, the right hardware and right power for it. And I would love it. I mean, anytime they announce a Galaxy 3, I will be there. And also, Nintendo, can you please just remaster Galaxy 2? Just give me that game. Just come on, get to it, right? And then we get to sort of 3D Land, 3D World, which was the next set of 3D Mario games. And honestly, like, now looking back, right? Obviously, you know, we've played 3D Land, we've played 3D World, we've played 3D World Remastered. I mean, I like that style of Mario. I think that game is great for what it is. You know, it's fun. Again, it does the sort of Galaxy thing where every level is very contained and has its own dose of creativity, right? But it feels limiting. You know, it doesn't feel like there's much to explore in those levels. The movement feels limiting. The cat suit's really cool, but it just feels like, you know, every level ends and you're sort of done with it, right? And it's very rare. You're like, oh, I want to go back to this level just for the fuck of it. You know, it's very rare I do that with 3D World, but it's such a fun, creative game that I don't necessarily think I want to revisit unless it was alongside a big 3D Mario. And I feel like the idea of here's the smaller scale 3D Mario where you can play multiplayer with friends, I like that, but I don't like that as a replacement to the main big 3D, you know, Mario games, right? And that's why I was so thankful with Odyssey coming out, you know, going with the idea. It's almost like a mix of everything. You know, you get creative kingdoms that have themes. You get the 64 style where you're, you know, in one level doing a bunch of missions. It felt like a celebration of Mario and the franchise, right? And before that, actually, I should back up a little bit. We had Bowser's Fury introduced in 3D World Deluxe, and that honestly, to me, speaks volumes about the future of 3D Mario. I mean, that was essentially a bigger version of Odyssey, right? In Odyssey, you would have these kingdoms that were pretty large that you would explore, but in a game like Bowser's Fury, you were in one area and you saw it evolve as you did more things in it. And that's sort of how Sonic Frontiers is, right? I love this idea of open world platforms, right? Because to me, the worst part about a lot of open world games is just like, you know, that slouch to go from one point to another, right? And it's very formulaic. Whereas with platformers, the whole joy of platformers is the movement, right? And the platforming, right? That's why I adored Odyssey and I love Frontiers so much, because you're giving me open areas, right? But it's a platformer. So the way I'm getting from point A to B is inherently more fun than, you know, walking or taking a horse or fast traveling. You know, if there's fun ways to get to an area, there's fun jump areas, there's fun things to do, then it's going to be awesome to see a world where 3D platformers are just these big open areas. I love the idea of that, right? And with Bowser's Fury, it felt like my one big flaw with that game was that it became very formulaic, right? Like you would go on one island and there was, hey, here's the key mission, here's the base mission, and then here's something else. Even the Super Sonic Mario that was raw, like you would do that again and again and again instead of like sort of changing and innovating. So I do hope we get sort of a mix of both those ideas. I would love the idea of Sonic Frontiers with different islands applying to something like Bowser's Fury where, hey, maybe it's 3 to 4 areas, and they are hella fleshed out, and they gain a lot of things to do, and they keep evolving over time. I love that idea, and I think that's something that is definitely worth exploring. And even with Mario, like, you had the inventory system where you could swap the different power-ups you're collecting. It just feels like a really cool way to explore a Mario game, and it makes you want to go back to different spots. Like, oh wait, now I have this power up, I can go back here and see what I couldn't do there. It's just, I think it's really creative, and I think Bowser's Fury really set the idea of what they can do, and even more ambition as well. I mean, like, obviously Fury Bowser is one of the rawest things they've ever done. And obviously with Odyssey, I've always championed the idea of Odyssey getting a sequel, because again, the same way Galaxy 2 did, I feel like with Odyssey there's so much more potential. First of all, Cappy. I mean, the idea of capturing anything, as long as they introduce new enemies and new things in the world, right? I feel like there's endless bounds of creativity with Cappy, right? Even just production-wise, it felt like there were more cinematic moments. Levels like New Donk City, which there aren't even enemies walking around. That city is straight up just a playground, right? And you just have fun in that world, and you'd go through, and it was awesome. But again, I would say the big flaw with Odyssey is upon replays, there is no reason to get every moon in that game except for the fact that you want to get them. So I feel like if they took the idea of Odyssey, where it is open world, collectathon style, right? Maybe just hone in on less of the, you know, the fluff ones where it's, hey, I stomp on the ground and get a moon. Hey, I walk, you know, to this wall and get a moon. Like, make it so that it's always something fun and weird I'm doing to get that. On the off chance Nintendo goes off the walls, right? They're like, not a sequel to Bowser's Fury, not a sequel to Odyssey, not a sequel to this, that. I always wonder, like, what's next for Mario? And I think, honestly, that's up to Nintendo, because Nintendo are the craziest people in this world, where, like, whenever I think they, you know, a next Mario game is just going to be, oh, yeah, it's going to be more, you know, jumping a platform, they always do something wildly creative. And I feel like with Mario, I don't know what you do next. I really do feel like the open area style is the way to go with Mario. You know, what mechanic they do, I don't know. Do you focus maybe on more combat with Mario, like more platforming action ideas? Do you go back to the old school power-ups that you sort of go with in the world? Do you make it more Metroidvania? I don't know. Like with Mario, it's sort of tough. They've gone to space. They've gone to, you know, random worlds. I don't know what they do next. I mean, do you make it a world tour? Sort of, you know, you go to explore different places around the world. I don't know what they can do, but obviously that team knows more than anything what they can do. And obviously I want to know exactly what you would like to see. So guys, let me know. What do you think is the future of 3D Mario? What do you want to see the most? Right, and of course, subscribe to your boy. Support the content. Let me know if you want more video topic discussion, things like this. And of course, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.